All right, everybody. It is the Jere Metcalf Podcast, where top real estate agents tell how they do it. And today on the show, we have an amazing leader of real estate who's going to share with us success, Donna Browning. She is with Sotheby's International Realty in the Brevard office. She oversees 150 agents, and she's been in the business for 23 years. Donna, thank you so much for coming on. Welcome to the show.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you?
Good. So here's my first question. Getting us warmed up. I talked to you a little bit about this, but I want to restate it, everybody, about Donna. She's someone who's done this for 23 years. I think you were an agent for a year before you realized and kind of found your sweet spot in this business as really a manager and a leader.
Absolutely.
And so I just want to preface it with this, and then I'll ask you the question and get you going.
Okay.
In business, it's about being someone of integrity, reliability, and showing up with enthusiasm. It's about teamwork. When you're doing things, when you take action, doing them with a team and a standard of excellence, and understanding that in this business, we're not just getting between someone and a deal, we're helping people navigate very complex situations and making decisions. And the result of that in your job is you grow, and you grow agents, you recruit by the nature of what you're doing, and you're training, and you have exceptionally well-trained agents, hence all of the other results.
I have to believe in when I'm doing a recruiting interview, I have to believe what I'm telling the potential agent, and I don't use any of our materials. Later on, they'll come in, but I usually just sit with a pen in my hand and I never use it because there's no paper. But I just am very passionate about the company. So it comes out when I'm talking to them, and they look at me, and I could read their mind. They're thinking, you have to say this. But by the time the interview's over, the response I get from them is, you really do believe in this company. And I do. And they set us up as managers to make the agents successful, but that makes us successful. So that's where it all starts with recruiting. And I usually, in my mind, do like a little bit of a personality test to see if somebody, is going to be a good fit for the company. And so far, we've been pretty successful. But and then you have to roll up your sleeves as a manager. Obviously, you can't just stand around and bark orders at people. So I like to lead by example. But every day I bow down to the agents because they are in the trenches. I feel their pain, but I don't have to. It's terrible, especially as the markets shift. Sometimes it brings tears. Not afraid, unfortunately, personalities get more intense, and the agents, even with their own clients, so they come to me and we work it out, we talk it out, we cry it out if we have to.
Exactly. So two interesting things about that, and then we're going to ask you more questions about you and how you got into this. But I love, everybody, how you talked about in this business, it's so aligned what you just explained to a really great listing agent who does a really great listing presentation. Is that in what you do and that's what I loved about bringing you on the show today, Donna, is that in business, there's so much focus on like, how do I pitch? How do I get the listing? Yeah, be good at that. But at the end of the day, what makes you a great agent with great results is who you become, which is a great leader. And there's so little focus on actual leadership opposed to just pitching business. It's showing up as that person who has integrity, reliability, and the skill set and the enthusiasm when they show up at that appointment. So when you're recruiting agents, you're literally, your stuff, and you're asking them the questions, and you're interviewing them, obviously, to come into business and learning more about them. What has been, because we're going in a few directions with this, but don't worry, we're going to get focused. But what do you think has been, when you have these conversations with agents and you interview them, because most people listening to us are agents who are wanting to learn from you, because your view is that view. It's like agents are all on the ground and you're up here, 30,000 feet, you get to see everything and all of us. In these interviews, what do you look for, and how do you know as we think about ourselves, how do we show up? How do we grow and adjust? And how do you identify that in other people, who the greats are going to be? Because by the way, one Sotheby's has some of the best agents in the country.
We do, and I'm very lucky to have a lot of great agents. The first thing I do going into it is let them tell me about themselves, whether they're brand new, whether they just, the ink is still wet on their license, so to speak, or they've been doing it longer than I have. It's all about them at that moment. So I let them tell me about themselves. And then depending on their level of experience, I will say to them, you know, did you talk to any other brokers, or how long have you been doing this? Why don't you interview me first? Because it comes across less intimidating if I'm not on them right away saying we have this, this, and this, we can do this better than anybody else, because we're not better than anybody else unless we try to, you know, as a brokerage, we try to empower our agents. We can, there's a lot of bells and whistles out there that are at anybody's fingertips. So I think one of the most important things that an agent can get is support and leadership.
Support.
So it's really all about them.
So when the agents come on, what do you find? How do you know, how easy is it to identify the greats? Who is great? Who's going to become great? And how do you know?
I do a little, you know, obviously I pull their production and I try to do a little research on them. Some people I can't find anything on, which tells me, you know, maybe they're not really putting themselves out there the way they should be as business. If they are more focused on the bottom line, or if the first words out of their mouth is what is your split, then I realize that we're not on the same playing field, because it's a relationship that needs to be built if you're going to be an agent with our company. And that's how we want our agents to treat their clients as well. So I'll usually in the first 5 or 10 minutes, I'll know if it's going to be something that will gel. And then every once in a while I'm wrong, because there's something that will let me give them a chance, or it's going to be good for the company. Maybe I'll have a personality conflict, or the particular office they're in. So I'll give them a chance, and I'm not afraid to admit when I'm wrong, but usually I can spot it. I've been doing it a long time. So it's, so I haven't been shocked yet. Let's just say that.
Just ask the questions, let them talk a lot, make sure you're learning everything about them, and then know what you bring to the table, so that you know whether this is a good deal or not. There's the formula. Yeah, so tell us a little bit about you, and then we'll get back to more of your insights. How did that, you've been doing this for 23 years. Did you plan on this, or what happened? And let's go back to what do you want to be when you grew up, when you were a kid, and bring us into how it all came about today.
So I wanted to be a veterinarian when I was a kid. I love animals, and I did wind up in the medical field, but with the humans, the most aggressive form of an animal. So I was in the medical field for 13 years before one day I just had it. And I was an administrator for a surgical group. And somebody said, you should go into real estate. And I was, still young. I was thinking, why me, real estate? I never really thought about it, but I went and got my license for the exact reason that I tell people not to get it. It was just to have my license, and that was terrible. And I learned that later on, but not from my own experience, from agents that do that. And so it was a big milestone. I did a lot of things in that year, all at the same time. Probably not the smartest decision I made, but that's how we learn. And then I practiced, I listed and sold for a year, just only 1 year. And it was very easy for me because I worked in the Disney area, in Orlando, and I sold to foreign nationals. I never even met any of my clients. They were buying these giant vacation homes. So I was just basically writing their name on a card and giving it to the builders. So that was a very good year for me, but I learned that I wanted to do more because it seemed I wasn't really, pushing myself, so to speak. I also learned that don't be an agent in an office where you never see your broker, because I was handed a key to the office my first day. Here's your desk. And she turned around and walked out. And I said to the one person who was there, where did she go? He said, you'll never see her again. And I didn't. And there weren't there were cell phones, obviously, but it was right after the MLS became an internet software, as opposed to the books. So it was just the worst feeling to be there and alone and with no support.
And what year was that?
1998.
Because I remember when the books had I was in 2002, and I remember we still had the books. Like some of the agents would still look at the books.
It was
in
called
the
System
corner
4.
at the office, right?
Yeah. And they told me this, that they got pages that they had to switch out every day. And I didn't have that. We had System 4 software, I think it was called, way back then. And there was a regular MLS, but nothing obviously like we have now. And if it wasn't for the builders doing the contracts back then, I definitely would have failed if I stayed at that brokerage, because there was zero support. So it was good.
So give us a little, just to put some of this into context, because a lot of our listeners are going, okay, so wait a minute. You, in your first year, you were basically getting names and turning them into deals through Disney buyers. Like, how did that's pretty awesome. And then we'll learn more, but explain, and then we'll learn more. Yeah.
But it took no skill. I was strategically placed. The office was right across the street from a place called Splendid China that brought in so many tourists every year. And our real estate office was right there. So they would stop in, and basically I just took them across the street to all the new construction that they were doing. There was KB Homes.
So you weren't even an on-site person. Your office just happened to be across the street from a site?
Right across the street. Right across the street.
Builders, I mean, that's like winning the lottery for real estate agents.
That's why my broker was never there. She had the perfect location. The builders were paying 8% co-brokes back then, not batting an eyelash. And I wound up I went to do my 45 hours post-licensing, and I was in class with a broker who was shadowing the class. She was already a broker. And we got to know, and it was when you go and sit in the classroom, by the way, and I had to do it the long way because I had 2 babies and I couldn't Oh yeah,
you didn't mention that. So you had 2 babies. So how old?
2, my son was 4 and my daughter was 2.5. So
they're in their 20s now. Wow.
And they just, I had to go sit in the classroom, and I met her, and her name was Helen. I told her I wanted to open my own brokerage someday. You could not take the broker class it was within 1 year back then, but I couldn't do it only 3 months licensed. So she told me if I wanted to open up my own real estate brokerage, that she would be my broker of record until I got mine. So I did it. So I owned the brokerage as a sales associate, but she was my broker of record. And
who was your broker of record? The woman you met in class?
The woman I met in class, she offered to do that for me. She definitely had faith in me. I mean, putting your license on a brokerage, never mind that I was a brand new agent. I was only licensed like 5 months, and she did that, and I left. Then I started to travel to Europe. Like the whole next year, I traveled to Europe while I was getting my broker's, until I could get my broker's license. And I would go to the property shows there. It was called World of Property. And I would just set up a booth with my company. It was called Four Seasons. And
great name.
That's how I got all the clients.
That's unbelievable. Because for most people, that is the biggest challenge. And you came in, you happened to be with an office across the street from new construction. So you were picking up clients because they came by the office to see the new construction across the street, and the commission.
They didn't even know about it. They didn't know about the new construction. They were just buying. There was a ticket thing next door to us that sold Disney, SeaWorld, all of the parks. You know how, I don't know if you know, but they have like those discount ticket, and that's exactly where our office was. So they would pop in the office. We had stuff in the window. I will not take credit for my success for my first 6 months of real estate, because literally, although I have a lot of questions
about that, because there's a lot to dig into there, because there's that. So real estate's easy for you, which it's not for most people, which there's a lot to learn, because you still continue to get your broker's license and open a company called Four Seasons and then go travel internationally. So the vision that you had. But the first question that comes out of this part of your story is, if it was so easy, and I'm not questioning it, clearly was, but being so easy, I think most people would say, well, let's just ride this, but why not? You said there was more, but a lot of people would say, yeah, but the money was there. Find some other way to get fulfilled. So give us a little bit, like, really what drove
Why?
you to not do that? Because what I mean, like,
I had a
great.
vision when I went into real estate. I was a leader in the medical group. Obviously, I was the administrator.
Um,
So I felt that I took a step back a little bit, even though it was a giant leap for me. So, like I said, I had that whole year. And then when I was opening my brokerage, I could afford to open the brokerage and do it the right way because of what I was doing. And, I had a giant office out by Disney. And so that's what I did. I concentrated on that until I got my broker's license. And then I still did that, but I did it under me. And recruiting wasn't a thing for me back then. I needed to really learn about myself first. How can I sit in front of an agent and try to recruit them and tell them about all this experience I have? So I was the boss of myself, and I felt good about that for a while. And then I started to hire a few agents after a couple of years, and I opened a property management company called Four Seasons Vacations and Management because of where I was. And the people that we sold the brand new homes to, I would manage them for them, but under two separate companies. I was smart enough back then to know you should keep your your short-term property management and your real estate company separate from each other because there's a huge liability in property management. So I did that, and my dad retired and I hired him. He was my property manager. It was
how fun.
Yeah.
So real estate agent in 1998, 99. Which year did you get your license? 98?
I got my license at the end of 98, and then I went to school in 98 and got it in 99 because it was the end of the year. 6 weeks, the class, I had to go for 6 weeks in the evening. And then I got my real estate license, sales associate in 99. And I did that, and I got my broker's beginning of
2000.
Nope, 2001.
So
So 2000, yeah.
2001, you're a broker, and now you open a branch of your company or kind of a separate management company for short-term rentals. And then what, year 2002?
Probably did it I don't know exactly the years. I probably did it after 6 or 7 months of just having the real estate company.
Right.
Once the homes were finished being built, then the people that I sold them to would say, well, would you manage them for me? So I did research on that too. And, I pulled up every information on every property manager. I would talk to people. Some got good, not reviews, but,
Right.
reputations. So I did that, and then I just opened my own.
Well, here's the really cool thing. In 1 year, you did what most people do in their career of real estate, from getting your license to getting a broker's license to opening a brokerage to opening a branch of your company. And then, I mean, like all these great things keep happening. And then you're like, nah, I don't want to sell. Like, forget all that money that you make selling. Like, what? Because you're good at it, I believe. Like,
I'm not.
What happened?
I can't take that credit. It's easy to sell.
But you showed up for it. A lot of people don't.
I did show up. Well, I mean, that was, it wasn't that I had to drive people around all day and then they decide that they don't want it, or they tell you, here's my criteria. And then they send you properties like my agents are telling me now what happens. It wasn't that. What they're doing now is hard work. I was determined. I was very determined. I felt like I had to prove something to myself and certain other people, but it was very easy for me to do because, like I said, you just register your buyer. And back then, everything was all in one place. So I didn't have to drive to a design center with them. I mean, we took care of everything like at that initial appointment, and the contracts were done by the builders. So I just, I never got the full, experience of the blood, sweat, and tears that my agents go through every day. And I mean blood, sweat, and tears. I mean, some of them are raking yards and trimming hedges and, paying for carpets to be clean. It's just, I didn't have that, but, I know my
So
way around the
what,
builder's contract.
so you went from owning a brokerage, so you owned the brokerage for how long? How many years?
I was on my own for gosh, till 2006.
Okay.
I left the Disney area and I moved to Osceola County, and I opened up I had a big brokerage. I closed Four Seasons. I mean, I still had everything, but I closed that chapter. Property management takes a toll on a person. So
Yeah,
and that's when I got married. I moved to Osceola County and opened up a little brokerage called Welcome Home Realty. And then the same thing that happened to me with Sotheby's happened to me there. I got recruited by Weikert to be a manager.
oh,
And
okay.
yeah.
So 2006, you go from, by the way, Four Seasons to Welcome Home. Those are two very different, that's
Yeah,
two very different like
very
titles
two
and
di- two very different lifestyles too, for sure. It was definitely the
exactly.
areas that I was in.
So, and the name I think was made to suit the market, or is there anything else to that?
It was in a little they had like this little downtown area where I leased the space, and it was so quaint. It was like a little village with shops and restaurants, mom and pop restaurants. And I just thought, and I had a window front, and I didn't have a store, so to speak. So I don't know why it just came to me, Welcome Home Realty. So I made sure it wasn't taken, and it wasn't. And so I took it. And so we built a little dollhouse in the window and had the red door. It was just, I have pictures of everything. If I go through my life of my real estate career, it's like, where was my energy back then? I don't
Well,
know.
that's what I'm
Very
thinking. Like just in your first year alone, everything that you did. And so then you opened Welcome Home
yeah.
Realty. And so you had agents and everything.
I had agents then. Yes, they were, and it was a totally different area. The market was different there. It was a lot of cowboys. It was St. Cloud, very good old boy. We don't need a contract to buy this house. I'm telling you, I'm gonna buy it. I'll buy it. It was like things like that mentality. And but I lived that life for 5 years, like in St. Cloud. We built a house there, and but at that time, Weikert recruited me to be a manager for one of their offices, and I accepted. And so I had to close my brokerage, obviously. And
Yeah.
then I became a regional manager for them. And then I was traveling all the time up and down the
Oh
coast
my
from,
gosh, so many questions.
yeah.
Okay, because I want everybody to get the full thing to keep everything in context here.
This is too much about me.
So when you have, well, this is the point. This is what it's about. This is how we learn. If we know about you, this is where the real lessons come as your life. So you come from owning your own brokerage and then you transition into managing and become this huge regional manager and running all of these offices just as you are now for one Sotheby's. When all of that happened, when you were managing, were you doing more, when you owned your own brokerages, were you doing more selling or managing?
Zero selling. I didn't sell. I did not
Wow.
compete with my agents. I did
Wow.
my own. I was my chief cook and bottle washer. I didn't hire. Obviously, I had an accountant that at the end of the day signed off on everything, but I did everything else. I reviewed I do like here, I ran the offices and I was supporting my agents. I
Yeah.
did the marketing myself for them. I didn't have, departments. I had me,
And,
and it
and what,
worked that way. I mean, it was,
here's the question, because you get people who own and sell, and then you get people who, because of the profit margins, I guess, and then you don't. For you, I think some of it maybe you sell because you love it and own a company, or because it helps generate the income and the revenue. How did you know that? Like, give us a little bit insight on, because that's going to take us into more leadership and what you've witnessed from your agents, and then we're going to go to the next level on Weichert.
how did I know that I'd rather be a managing broker
And
than
how did you know that
in
it
the
was going to
country?
be lucrative? Yeah.
Um, well, the property management company that I had completely depleted me from energy and faith in mankind. To be honest with you, there was a lot of bad stuff that went on in the property management world, and I couldn't have my name associated with that. They basically, property managers, I don't know, they got a very bad name, reputation. Every time I got a call for somebody new, they would be like, "This, are you going to do this to me like the other company did?" So it just didn't sit well with me, but I did it for a long time. And so when I moved to Welcome Home Realty, it was like I was out in the nature. I really wasn't, but it was, compared to being in Orlando, and in, that area is really busy over there. I felt like I was definitely a cowgirl. And that's when I just, and I didn't enjoy all that hustle and bustle, because when I sat down at the end of the day to do my administrative stuff, I was way more comfortable with that. So I thought, let me try this. And when I did Welcome Home, I hired a few agents that lived in St. Cloud. I, pitched it to whoever I didn't know. And then the people that knew me would tell their friends. And I had about 6 or 7 agents, and I just loved what I did. I was at my desk for them every day. I went in, I made myself go to work from 9 to 5. And then of course, after hours too, because you know how it is. And I loved it a lot better. And I started to get good at it because I enjoyed it. I don't think I ever would have been a top producer, not, the real way, not the easy way that I, had that break, but I just rather empower somebody to do that. I know what to do. I know what people should do and how they can be successful, but you have to like what you're doing, because it shows if you don't.
Yeah.
And I'm sure if I was at a listing appointment right now, it would show that I did not want to be there.
Yeah. But you really
I'd
like
rather
being behind the agents because you know what to do, you know what they need, and you like to help them show up.
Yeah.
When you're there for them, I'm sure you've seen agents who are trying to be successful, because there's so many. I mean, what is it? 95% of agents in the first 2 years just don't make it. And there's these other guys that just like flourish, and they really are great at it. Yes, sure, there's a little luck, but they're showing up for it and they're great at it. What is the difference, or what have you witnessed as the difference between those two agents?
Some people are naturals, whether they've never done it before or they've been doing it for a while. Some people are just a natural. They know they want to do this and they put their mind to it, they have to know the good, the bad, and the ugly, for sure. I mean, you can't paint yourself a pretty picture in this business. So if I have the opportunity to talk that through with them, I think it helps them decide. Not 2 weeks ago, I talked an agent out of even doing this. I knew, and she actually sent me, I didn't see it until a few days later. She texted me and told me she thanked me very much. She said, I had a feeling this business wasn't for me. She said,
Wow.
but it was a path to my home staging business. So
then just do the home staging business, right? I mean, it's like, it's just easier to do that. And how
sometimes,
I
was gonna say, sometimes a bad thing can take you to a good place. And she suffered her first month doing this. First of all, she set goals for herself that were unattainable, because she wanted everything done like in 2 weeks. I don't have any listings, and she wasn't even onboarded. And I was like, you just have to,
you kind of have to be licensed and
take a deep breath.
Broker, right?
But she's happy. I talked to another one of my agents at my Ninja meeting on Tuesday, and she bumped into her and she said, I've never seen her so happy. So she had her little, it was one of those things, maybe she had to see. If she never did it, she never would know. So,
well, it's number one, you've got to like what you're doing. You've got to have the drive to do it. And you've got to be honest with yourself about what you're faced with in this business. It's not lying to yourself and sugarcoating it. And that's just like, here's what it is. I think a lot of us get into real estate, and, everybody doing anything I've learned in my life, because my sister teases me because I don't do anything halfway. I got into horses and I was big into that. I got into real estate and being an agent, and I was huge into that. And there's a part of you, people, that you love it, but everybody, when they get in it, everybody has their moments where they question, when they really get in it, that you can burn out. Is this really for me? And there are two things. First of all, you got to just see where you like it and like it. If you don't, maybe, not. But what is it you do and don't like about it? What is it? Are you ready to show up and do the work And are you being honest with yourself? And in that, to answer that question, number one is, what's the goal? What's the real goal here? Because if it's to start a staging business, then don't, real estate agent to get to a staging business is not what it looks like. Don't do it. So number one, what is the real goal? And does it align to what you're doing? And the other thing was, we talk about like some people just have it. They have it. They just are success, but it is something. Like, if you ever, like, when you, would you say, is there something that it is? Because I find, and then I'll let you answer the question, you get agents who are loud with huge personalities, and then you get these introverted agents who are spreadsheet geeks, but they're both two very different people, are equally successful and great at this business. So is there an it factor, or how do we know what it is? Or if you could pinpoint it, or could you?
For me, I think it's the relationship. No matter what their personality is, some people like, the class clown. Some people like things a little bit more low key. So I think if you can make the client feel comfortable with you, however you are, then that is the number one key to success, because that will lead to referrals if you ever decide that you want to start stepping back. I have agents that are top. My biggest single top producer is the surfer boy, and he just has been around forever. Everybody knows him. He has his real estate career reminds me of my first year, although he works a lot harder than I did that first year. So because he just kind of comes to him. And then I have the most polished of top producers. But it's all boils down to the relationship and treating people right and knowing what you're doing. So, even the comedian can know what they're doing. Might not always look that way, but it's going to look that way to the right people who are getting good service from them. Yeah. I tell the agents, it's not about me. It's not about the company first. It's about them. And then they know that they have a safety net and they have a backdrop like Sotheby's. How could you go wrong with that brand behind you? And the support that they have, knowing that they have a managing broker who's there for them. And I would be nowhere without my staff.
Yeah.
I don't know what I would do. I don't know where I'm going each day. I always have to text somebody like, where am I this morning? And what am I doing? Even though it's on my calendar, I'm not, but I just have to, I need that validation. So I'm getting a little break right now because one of our offices is under renovation. So I only have 4 to visit, but you can't do it without a good team, even a managing broker. So I have a great support team myself, from the hire, to my local staff. They're amazing. And my agents are amazing. So it's a win-win for me.
And here, like, for what you're bringing it down to in success, it's like whatever you're doing, it needs to align to your goal and align to what you love to do. And in loving to do it, there's where the work ethic comes in. You need a work ethic, but it's not, the work ethic's going to wear out if you don't love it. And last but not least, it's about the people. So we've had conversations offline about when you're managing people, like if you're a real estate agent, you're managing clients, you are a leader to them, not just a salesperson. That's what a salesperson should be. And anyway,
right.
But in what you do, it's about, you just mentioned you've got 5 offices and you visit every single office in person. You see these people in person, you show up for them. Just like in the beginning, even though you don't want to take any credit, I know it was easy, but you did show up. You did show up. And even now, it's not so easy. And you're seeing these other agents. It's about showing up and truly engaging to other people. That's what I'm hearing.
It's the best part of my job, honestly. So I don't feel like it's work. I like to be with them. We Zoom too. We'll Zoom in the evenings or something, but or they'll request a Zoom because they're not available to me in person. But being in person, you kind of, even though you're not really touching, but you just get the true vibe. You can really see if they're suffering. You can really see if they're happy. And sometimes through a Zoom, you can't tell if they're getting what you're telling them. I do have to give tough love sometimes. They don't understand why they can't do something, or, they'll try to buck the company policy. But I just listen and I let them repeat what they're asking me a couple of times, and then most of the time they'll just stop and realize what they're asking, and I'll just say, see, you just took care of your own problem. So I've never had to, not that I would do that in business, but really come out at somebody. It's talking things through, and usually the light bulb goes on. And that's if it's between us, me and the agent. Now we can't control the, personalities of other, the other agent on the other side, or the customers in a transaction. I know it sounds cliche, but I think I've seen it all, honestly. And it just keeps getting better every day, some of these things. So it's, I feel their pain. That's why I'm telling you, I say it all the time, that I bow down to them, because they have the job. It's easy for me to sit here and listen to them and coach them and, support them, but they're out there. It's a jungle.
It really is. And the skill that you brought, I remember being an agent, this is one of the best things I learned is when you're communicating with people, let them repeat. Like, first of all, when you communicate, say back to them what you heard, and then let them say it again, because you won't get it right. They will correct you, and let them do that, because they're also hearing themselves. And like you said, there's so much magic in that. We feel like we have to come and show up and do so much, but a lot of it is let them talk and hear it for themselves, and keep the conversation and keep it open and engaged.
It happens in text and emails too. I was in a meeting one day, and one of my agents sent this really long email, and I was reading it because I had to, communicate. And I just texted her and I said, I'm in a meeting. We'll talk about this after. And then she texted me about 30 minutes later. I was still in the meeting. She said, I'm so sorry. I'm so ridiculous. I just read my email again. So she figured it all out. It was something that she was asking, which was totally ridiculous, but she realized it herself. So I guess it was a good thing that I was in the meeting, because I didn't have to, have a back and forth with her.
Real estate agents just need to navigate their clients the way that you navigate real estate agents.
And her client was asking her to do something that was basically illegal. He wanted her to write a contract, not fill in the blanks. He told her to write up a lease option. And she was asking me. Yeah.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Don't even do that to yourself either.
I know.
Wow. That's amazing. Okay, so as you navigate and have helped agents, we're going to get back into your story. I've got more questions, but those will come up through your story. So now remember, when you share your story, this is how it puts into context. You've got your story is so amazing, and it puts into context everything that you bring to the table. So it's like, oh, I get why I need to be there, or now I get the message. So thank you. Weichert. So you have this brokerage for 5 years. Welcome Home. I love it, from the Four Seasons to Welcome Home. And then Weichert comes in, and you took the job. What should we know? Because you just keep growing, and grass is not growing under your feet. How did that happen? And what did that look like? And what was your big lesson in it?
So I'll give you the nutshell version, because it's funny. And so in Weichert, I was regional there for 6 years. So I was Palm Coast to Fort Lauderdale, all the coast, which was amazing. But I was traveling every week. I was home one day, and but it was okay. And then so I did that, and then I left that brokerage, that Weichert. It was one Weichert, and I left that one. And one of the people in New Jersey of Weichert heard that I left that, and I was getting ready to open my own brokerage. I was going to go out on my own, but I didn't do it yet. So then I got a call from New Jersey, and they said, I hear you left the Orlando brokerage. He said, I have a proposition for you. Will you go work in an office that we have down south? It was just one. They didn't have a lot of branches. And he said he needs a little help over there. He needs some leadership in his office. The broker did, because he was out, he wasn't present. Let's just put it that way. So the agents were kind of on it. So I agreed to do that. So I did it for 1 year. And then when the gig was, I built the office for him. I straightened everything out. It's like the cleaning lady going in there.
The
And then I
fixer.
came back. Yeah, the fixer. And then I came back here, and then I opened up my own brokerage. And probably a year or two into it, I'm trying to do the dates now because now everything just falls together. I got a call from, I guess I can say the name, but if I can't, you'll take it out, from a luxury, independent luxury broker in
Yeah.
Vero and
Okay.
Brevard County, and they wanted me to run their office in Brevard. So I closed another real estate office. I took the job because they had so many agents, and I was so excited to be, working with a lot of agents. Plus, they had a great reputation. And I remember driving by their office when they started to open. The sign went up for Brevard,
Amazing.
thinking,
Yeah.
but I thought, the thing I said to myself was, that, well, that's not good news for me, because I was a little teeny mom and pop, and then I saw that they were coming into Brevard. And so then I ultimately went to work for them, and I worked there for
And this was
4
Weichert,
years.
right?
This was a
Oh,
different
okay.
brokerage.
Oh, okay. So anyway,
Yeah. And so I worked there for about 4 years, 4.5 years. And it got to the point where I wasn't I looked like I swallowed a hanger every morning, is how happy I was when I would go to work. But it got to the point where I wasn't anymore. It
wow.
became not a company that I aligned with their values. That things changed. They brought in a business development person, and he was going around to all of their offices and telling them what changes to make and things like that. And so it wasn't fun anymore. They weren't putting their agents first, and they were losing agents, and I
Oh,
took it
wow. We won't
personally.
say the name because I think we might all
Yeah,
know who it is,
yeah.
but interesting. Okay.
So I left, and then I took a little bit of a break. I just it was right around COVID anyway. We didn't know it was COVID yet because it was
Yeah.
early. It wasn't
Can we talk
identified.
about
People were
when you
just getting,
left? Here, one question.
yeah.
I do want to ask a question because this is for the real lessons. Like, this is like, first of all, Donna, everybody, this is a woman who has started things from nothing. And in the beginning, not really many people. And yes, you had some nice cushy luck in the beginning. We won't take that away. But mind you, you have started things and made them into something again and again and again. And now in this phase of your career, you were part of starting something that became something, and now you become a part of an organization. And while it was probably financially not a bad situation, a part of you just couldn't align to it. And I want to ask you, but I want to preface it, and so you can correct me and make sure we're hearing everything correctly and getting the message and the lessons from you and career success and growth, is that you're in a situation where your job, your purpose, and the purpose of real estate brokerages is to serve agents and empower them. Agents come to brokers to be the best they can be and to be empowered and to get resources, and that's what you do. And now you're in an organization, to see now why we didn't name it, and you say, this isn't what's happening here. And I have a feeling, so tell me, when you made that decision, a few things had to happen. There was a part of it said, this isn't who I am, this isn't my purpose. But give us, because it's a question in everybody's mind, what was the financial component? How did you know? Yes, you've started again and again and again, but you also know the risk. There are just so many things to consider that we can learn from in that moment in your life. So like, take us there just for a minute, if you don't mind, and help us learn how you knew I can't be a part of this, and how you knew to cut ties, and how you did it, and the lessons you got in that moment, because you didn't see that coming. I guarantee you didn't see that coming.
It was like a drop, a very fast drop. It was 4 years, 4 months. Let's say it was that. I would say 4 years of it, sunshine and lollipops. We had productive agents. They were amazing. They were happy. They were in the office they wouldn't go home to do their contract. They would come and sit down. They would be there. We had team building events. We had meetings in person. And this business development person came in, and obviously it wasn't my decision. I didn't own the company. So they hired this person, and he would, like I said, he visited the offices. Well, two different markets are completely different. We have Vero and we have Brevard County. So what's good for one isn't good for, just like with all of the one offices, we're all a little bit different, and I sucked it up for a while, so to speak, but it was just one day an agent started crying and she came to me, and I guess he must have been rude to her. She said he was rude. And then he came into my office and he said, this is the way it's going to be now. I've been going over things, and I think, and it's so minor of what the straw was that broke the camel's back, because they were making changes. I couldn't hire at certain splits anymore, even if somebody was a top producer. And the broker owner gave me complete autonomy over all of the Brevard offices. I grew them from one office
This
to
was the
three.
before. So the before is the broker owner gave you complete autonomy to grow.
Right.
It was lucrative. And
He
the
said,
after was, it was like you were being suffocated.
this not an owner, by the person he hired. But it was just lot of little things that were happening. And that's when I told you, I just wasn't happy. I still went there every day because the reason why I went there every day was to protect the agents from, it was just a poison in the office. The atmosphere, it started to look like a ghost town. But I used to send birthday cards to the agents on their birthday. I used to buy really nice cards, and I used to say, from me and the owners, I would say in the cards, and I would always put an Amazon gift card in there for them. And I expensed it, but I put everybody's name on it. I wanted the agents to know, because one of the things that they said all the time was, they forget about us over here at Brevard. And I would say, that's not true. If you have any concerns that I can't handle, I will go to them for you, because I wanted them to feel comfortable. And so I did this. I just took the initiative, and I expensed it, and I got reimbursed. He told me not to do it anymore. He said, that's going to stop now. So I didn't stop. I mean, I was only there, and to this day, I'm still sending all of their top producers are with me now, by the way. And they came with me. But for the people that didn't,
there goes a heck of a business strategy, right? Like, look at the lessons there. I mean, so many. A birthday card is a good thing. That's good money to spend, right? Like,
I do it now. Now too. I still do it to the agents there.
It's kind of hilarious.
Just because
whether you're friends.
Even if they were some of them were just my coworkers, or, we work together. Doesn't mean that I don't want to wish them a happy birthday just because they're not under my roof. So I think that's my extent of socializing, because I'm very under the radar kind of a person. And that's,
I know we had to force you to come on the show. So everybody, this is like a treat. And if you're listening, just suck it all up, because it's probably never going to happen again.
I don't know. So
what a great story. So you leave, and then at what point, so because you've like so many stories, at what point does one come into the picture? How far away are we from one now?
It seems like something that just keeps happening is I opened up another real estate office right smack in the middle of COVID. I opened up Coastal Elite Real Estate. And
I like the name, Coastal Elite.
I got myself it was adorable, in Cocoa Village, and it was a little office. It had two separate offices, a main room. It was in on like the French. I can't explain. There was a French restaurant downstairs that was totally decked out. So I did my decor just like that. And all during COVID. I made the agents for the office for the agents. It was only for the agents. Didn't have an office in there, and I worked from home, and pretty much we all wound up on March 17th, 2020, working from home here in Brevard. And I don't know how it trickled in.
I'll never forget. Yeah.
So I just, I had the office. I had about 12 agents. They were working. They were all experienced. I rarely heard from them with any issues, because they knew I still did all the administrative broker stuff. And then I just found myself again, because we kind of all were forced to do that. We couldn't really do anything. Everything was closed. So I So I worked on my house a little bit. I worked on myself a little bit. I just, you're stuck in the house with your husband. We learned about each other a little bit. And again, and then I got a call from Mr. Daniel De La Vega. I think my office was open. I opened it February 20th. I remember that because it was a month to the day of when I left the other brokerage. And I want to say Daniel called me maybe in end of May, beginning of June.
Wow.
And I was rude. I wasn't rude. I was abrupt because I didn't recognize the number. And I'm surprised I answered it. There must have been a reason why I answered it because the area code, looked familiar. But I was like, this is Donna. And then he's so kind. I know, and he's so calm, and just his voice is like a sedative. And he introduced himself, and I said, because I'd really, like the opportunity to chat with you. And I go, I own my own brokerage. I know, isn't that terrible?
Oh,
I can't believe I'm telling you.
I love this. This is great.
I don't even know if he remembers, but
he's
so kind. Well, he probably, I don't know, but he just, he said to me, he chuckled and he said, I know I caught you off guard. And so that totally
what a great response.
Yes. And I said, you did. And then I'm pretty sure he asked me if I would agree to another call, like to chat with, I forget who I even talked to. It might've been, I don't even know anymore. It's all a blur, and it's all a whirlwind of what happened after that, because 2-3 calls later, maybe 3 before I actually told them yes, but they had me at the first call. And now this is the first time I'm ever admitting it, but just, I had to know, I had to have a talk with myself, and I had to wrap my head around everything that I heard the first time I talked to them, that it was really true that these people had the same values that I did, and about the relationships with their agents, and how they were, and they weren't corporate, even though they're huge. And I liked that. And so I agreed to do it, and I closed another brokerage. So that's it. That's my story. And here I am.
This is what you had me at. I know I caught you off guard.
Yeah. Right. That's Daniel. Like, he just can.
And the way he said it too, by the way, I'm sure it was just like the perfect tone, the perfect everything. I know I caught you. I can't even do it. Like that's
he was forgiving me he was calling me out on being abrupt and
without
kind of
saying it.
Me. Yeah.
That's the way to do it. I mean, it's the small things. So, of course, everybody knows I love one, and I don't know Daniel as well, but I need to get more time with Daniel because I keep hearing so many great things about him. But the word that comes to mind for me is just visionary, authentic, and passionate. And that they just have my heart. For you, what is it for you that you're just like, yes, like, this is my people, this is what it's about? How do you know?
I know because obviously I talked to Daniel and Mai, but I also know that at the end of the day, I'm the squeaky wheel for my agents and for the better of the company. I definitely put on a broker owner hat and think about things. And it's not always evident to them in the beginning, but honestly, they support me. I never felt more support at any company than I feel from the upper management team here. So I try to leave them alone. Sometimes, we have to talk things out, and I need to talk things out, and they're there for me. So I pretty much, I'm on autopilot over here because I know the county, and I know we're not, South Florida. We're not even the north, the Jacksonville market. We're kind of a little,
unique,
hybrid.
Unique culture and market.
Well, we have a lot of industry here. I mean, we have the space program, so we have a lot of young families here. It's a very casual county. People work here, play here, live, it's like everything. We don't have a lot of as many retirees as they do south of us. So even though Vero is honestly 35 minutes from my most southern office, it's a whole other world. It's just, and they accept that. Like if you come to them with, if I have to go to them with a challenge, and I'll say, look, this can't happen over here because, and this is why. And I don't just ask for things or bark orders or anything. I always have the reason why. And I've already talked it over with myself several times before I'll make that call, because I don't like to do any knee-jerk stuff with, somebody else's business.
That goes back to what you were talking. It's about the relationships. It's about people. It's about understanding and being engaged with
absolutely
people that you serve and really showing up for them and serving them.
How can I be supportive if I don't have support? And I do. So
what a great example on being successful as a leader, understanding success as agents. And so with that right there, I want to transition into our final 3 questions. And don't worry, they're not that complicated.
Okay.
They're easy. The first one is, if you could identify and say, this is the one resource that is most responsible for my success and my path of trajectory in my career, what is it?
Resource? I mean, would you consider, I consider support a resource.
Yeah.
They feel my passion. And I've had them say that to me. So I feel like they get it. They get me. I know it sounds very cheesy, but they get me.
Well, you've been in a situation where you didn't have support and supported the people around you and their support.
They didn't know that at the time. I didn't, say any of that, but I identified it, that that's what I would have. So, but they do, I have the support, even if it's not, just because it's not, the answer might not be yes, doesn't mean I don't have their support. We can work things out. And then that I, in turn, sometimes you have to put your thinking cap on and you figure out plan B and make it work. But I feel like the parents, it looks like parents not letting the children see, like if there's some, unrest in a certain situation. I mean, nothing is perfect, and it's nothing terribly wrong. It's just that the parents don't want to see the kids to see certain things, and that's how I look at it. Sometimes I do feel like a mother hen, but for the agents,
right?
But we just all work together. Like as far as the leadership, we just work together, and we just try to, if there's a hurdle, we'll get over it. Sometimes we have to give each other a boost.
Right. Real teamwork. The people around you having their support for real teamwork. Number 2, if you had to name one book that has made the biggest impact on your life and or your career that we just have to read, what is it?
Oh boy. There's a few. I mean, are you speaking about like business books?
Whatever comes to mind, whatever makes the biggest impact. And if you have 2, we'll let you have 2. If there's more,
I can pick one, only because I'll pick it because I'm probably 10 times in reading it, and I can't tell you how many times I've listened to it, and it's The Go-Giver. And I always push that book. It's very easy to read. Clearly, it's not a novel, but just the message. And it's the way I would want to be, approachable and things like that. And then, have you listened to it? You've listened to it, I'm sure.
I have. It's been a while, but I always share my big takeaway from that book, which was powerful to me. But what's your biggest takeaway from reading Go-Giver?
I always go back to the part, it's not the part, it's like the message that I like. It was that the person couldn't believe that this guy took the time to, now that I'm on the spot, I can't think of his name. And it was the last thing I listened to yesterday before I pulled in. Just the message that certain people can empower you, and they are approachable, and that you're don't always judge a book or judge somebody, because I feel like sometimes people do judge me. Not that I'm ever putting myself on that man's level, but some people do judge me, and I'll hear it later on. Like an agent will say to me, I was intimidated by you, and I really thought that you were going to be this or that. And so I don't like to hear that. I'm not trying to put a message out there. So I worry about not worry about it. like to know that I have a good reputation. And that's why, I made certain decisions in my life.
That's why you're
to not-
intimidating. That's a compliment. You're intimidating because you're just a badass. I mean,
Yeah, no, I'm really not present in the way that it's,
But it sounds like the biggest takeaway was it's about, don't forget what you have to offer the world, and what they might be willing to offer you if you open up to it.
right. I mean, it's some people that judge is such a strong word, and I don't mean it like that, but your perception.
It's think about, we assume so many things that we don't even know we're assuming.
Right. Exactly.
Be careful what you assume, because you really have no idea how much you're assuming all the time. And I say you, I'm talking to myself.
I know.
So true. Last question. If we're just going to forget everything we talked about today, which I don't think is possible because there have been so many great things to learn. I feel like I've got the book on Donna Browning now.
Oh my gosh.
I've got it. Like, this is sacred. But if we're going to forget everything and only remember one thing from you today, what do you hope the one thing we take away is?
That at this point in my life and for my career, or not at this point, starting 2 years ago, July, I am extremely passionate about what I do. And I feel like I am the most passionate. That I was very, successful. I was lucky, very lucky, but I can feel the passion. And the way I know that is when the going gets really tough, I just keep going. Because I'm passionate about it. So, and there are days where, I'm just one person and I have an iPad going off and a cell phone going off and emails and texts and, texts and calls. And I'm just like, I take a deep breath and I said, I wouldn't want to be doing anything else right now. So yeah, I may change in 10 years.
And hearing your story and everything you've been through and accomplished, you're someone who's shown up knowing what you do, having integrity. You're reliable. You show up for the job and you love it. Enthusiasm, being passionate. And when you have the right people around you who work together, who you can support and they support you, we all support one another. That's where you get the results. That's where you show up and have that passion and love what you do and create whatever success it is that you want. Because we all want different things. People would hear your story and think you would have taken a completely different path, and you didn't, because you aligned to what you value and what you want. And that's what is such a big part of being successful.
I did think about every now and then, maybe I'll do something. I told you I opened up a cafe, but I had my real estate office in the back of it. So it's like, I just can't. You can't
get out of this business, right?
Yeah, no, I can't.
Well, Donna, thank you. But you don't want, right, exactly. I love it.
Yeah.
You've
been very kind.
No, you have. Well, thank you so much, everybody. Donna Browning, managing broker with One Sotheby's International Realty of 5 offices, by the way, in Brevard County of South Florida. Thank you so much, Donna. It's just been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Jere Metcalf Podcast, where top real estate agents tell how they do it. If you like this episode, please share it with friends. To find more episodes, search Jere Metcalf Podcast on any platform for podcasts, or go to JereMetcalfPodcast.com. That's JereMetcalf podcast.com.